Hello, my name is John Hebden and I'm a volunteer presenter at BCB Radio. Now, Leonardo Giuliani is a guitar player and singer-songwriter whose family is from Italy but who is now based in Southampton in the UK. His music is based in the blues but with strong rock, folk and country influences. His debut album Rogue was released in February 2023. The record was produced by multi-Grammy Award winner producer Tom Hambridge, who also plays drums on the album. And a copy of Rogue found its way to BCB Radio a few weeks ago. I'm very pleased it did. I took it home, played it, enjoyed it. So much that I messaged Leonardo to see if he would be up for an interview. And he responded very quickly to say that he would be. So this is that interview. And when I met up with Leonardo, I began by asking him about the reaction to his album.
It's one of those slow burners that's got, hopefully it's got the longevity on its side. The way it's been, like the way we decided to record it and work on it. And I didn't want to do something necessarily like homemade for it, mainly for like the reverence I have for the music. And so I thought, I have to, if I do this, I want to do it. I want to do it right. I mean, originally we were meant to record in Nashville in 2020, but everybody knows what happened in 2020. We had to move stuff around. So Tom Hambridge produced the album. He produces Buddy Guy, and he's been producing Buddy for like 15 years now. That's where I met him, because I was lucky a bunch of times to share the stage with Buddy Guy at his club in Chicago, and that's where I met Tom. And we started chatting about, I think the second year round that I went to Chicago for it, we started chatting about making an album. He's helped out a lot of younger chaps, like Kingfish has produced all the, most of the Quinn Sullivan's records as well. So he used to have a bunch of stuff. Necessarily his pop blues genre as far as producing, but he was happy to do it. And it's definitely blues influence, and there's a blues influence in everything I do, I think.
I recognised that Leonardo's sound was quite reminiscent of British blues-based rock from the late 60s and early 70s, and I asked him about this.
Absolutely, yes, yes. I'm glad that you picked that up. That's a compliment for me. Clapton was a huge, and still is a huge influence. A lot of Dire Straits, obviously the Stones and the Beatles, but not as much, I think, as Clapton work in those years, and the jam bands from the States as well. But then I've enjoyed, which I don't know why, I've heard that and I got to the UK a bunch of years ago, and I was like, hey, I love Phil Collins, and I love Simply Red. And people were like, they got too big, we don't like him anymore. I don't know if that's still a thing. But they were a huge influence just as much. But, yeah, the work of Clapton and...
So I went through the album yesterday morning and made notes about each track. And I've written Dire Straits down to next to Maze of Gold, actually. And I've written Eric Clapton down several times. So what strikes me about the album, Leonardo, is you've got I suppose something like 50% of the tracks are fundamentally based in the blues, but you've also got the other influences coming through. So a bit of country, a bit of folk. There's some acoustic guitar in there, and it does remind me of the mixture in particularly the early Clapton albums. I suppose one difference is that you're the sole songwriter, I think, aren't you, on Rogue?
That's correct.
Whereas Clapton would do cover versions, but it's the sound and the mix of material.
It wasn't around the house, kids. I must say I was lucky. There was a lot of Clapton, there was a lot of Genesis being played in the house as well.
Yeah.
Believe it. Deep Purple. If you want to talk about early 70s British bands.
Yeah.
And yeah, all those, I think, from Ocean Boulevard to even lesser known albums that I got to really enjoy, like No Reason to Cry, Backless, all these 70s era for some reason has got a certain freedom, as also a certain freedom to the just, things are sharper in like a slightly brighter. There's not so much compression. There's not so much producing.
I reflected that Leonardo's recorded guitar sound was very clean, and he told me about how his guitar was recorded.
I can deal with too much gain.
Okay, right. Okay.
Yeah, I do like that. Yes, I mean, I can't lie. It must have influenced, even subconsciously, what I do. And I think, I would like to push. I like to get if we want a guitar, let's say, or guitar sounds. I do like to get an overdrive from the amp if I can, or help it a little bit. But I don't want to lose the sound of the guitar. I don't want to end up playing through a rig and every different guitar sounds the same.
Right.
It makes no sense otherwise to have more than one.
So what guitar do you play, Leonardo? Do you play? Have you got a rack of guitars that you can choose from at a gig? I mean, you've got a nice white one on the front of your album.
Yes, so that's a Strat. I think that's the first good guitar I ever got.
Okay.
I was, I think, 17, I want to say, 16, 17. That one's been with me everywhere. So that's why I needed to get on the cover, because especially for an album, it's been everywhere with me. But in the last few years, really, I've been playing a semi-hollow Gibson. I just find that when I do a lot of playing, it's a bit more friendly to the hand than a Strat.
Okay,
so
interesting.
It tends to be a little rougher, a little tougher to play. While Gibson's, I think for the headstock, the way the headstock is designed and the tension on the string, it's a bit more friendly to longer hours.
And when I met up with Leonardo, I asked him about his live performances. Did he usually play with a band?
Not all the time. I've done a solo gig last night, actually.
Yeah.
And I'll support, actually, there's two American musicians coming over in October, Watermelon Slim and Heavy Drunk, whom I haven't met yet, but I'll be supporting their tour.
Okay.
And in that case, it'll just be me, myself, and my acoustic guitar, or maybe an electric and a little amp. But in that case, I'll play solo. But I do like to play in a band. That's where you get you bounce off each other, and it does ties back into those 70s, experimental jam band, or if you want to stick to Clapton, even Derek and the Dominoes stuff.
So if you're playing just by yourself,
Yes.
Can you still solo, or do you just have to play rhythm all the time?
I will solo. It's a little more difficult, let's say. It's less enjoyable because I'm playing rhythm and soloing at the same time. So I'm trying to run the bass line with my thumb.
Yeah.
Whilst I'm soloing with, or having like just chord breaks, a little bit of solo chord breaks. So yeah, it's not as helpful, let's say, to play on my own. But then there's I can play harmonica, which I haven't really done much. But so it's a different, let's say, it's a different page of the same book.
Okay. And when you play live, are you playing the Rogue material? I mean, or do you play covers, or have you got newer songs?
It's a mix, actually. It's a mix of songs from Rogue. There's a bunch of covers that I always like to do, and then there's a few original tunes that haven't been released that I do play live, actually.
Yeah.
Yes.
And what plans does Leonardo have for touring in 2024? And would that include him coming north?
There's a couple in March, local to Southampton.
Yeah.
Then there's 3 festivals. There's one in Torquay. That's a weekend festival. I'm headlining a Saturday. That's in June. Then 2 more festivals in Hampshire. So it's still south, really.
Yeah.
Then I'm actually doing something in Poland. I'm headlining a Poland festival. This is a long story, but I'll try to make it short. So years ago, Buddy Guy's son sat in with one of my gigs in Italy, which I haven't played in like 7 years, and he sat in, and then he invited me over to Chicago, and so that's where we kind of like
I see.
around.
Okay.
And so I'm doing this headline, and the guy saw the promoter saw a video of me and Greg play together that same gig from years ago, and he said, "Would you think he'd be interested in coming along?" And I said, "Well, I'll ask him."
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, Greg is gonna come down, do a couple of songs with us. So he'll that's a long travel for 2 songs, but you know, it's worth it. So I'm looking forward to that one, and then coming back, bunch more stuff in the south. But I want to visit north really because I've never been, and I know there's a couple of people that come regularly to gigs, and which I think they're from Glasgow, and they're so lovely, and they always tell me you should go up north. It's lovely, people are awesome. I was like, I can't wait, honestly. So I'm trying to work out, but getting some dates in the calendar where I can come on my own, or even with a trio, come up and do maybe Manchester, Leeds, and Liverpool.
I concluded my chat with Leonardo by asking if he could now make a living from music, or if he still had to sell pizzas.
This year I've started just keeping it to music.
Okay.
It's different because I think I've done a regular job, if you want to call it that, since I got out of high school. So from 19 onwards, I've always kind of worked, not necessarily a 9 to 5, but retail. Then you have to squeeze in free time on the weekend, which is where you're gigging most of the time.
Yeah.
So, I've done it for a long time now. I'm just doing music, it's a blessing. It's a question mark because it's not. It depends how busy you get, but nonetheless, there's more time to do music, which always asks more time of me, and the bureaucratic side of music, and dealing with the album as the owner of the album, as a copyright owner, it was great in the sense that I kept all my rights, but on a bureaucratic level, it was difficult to get around to, and it still is, because there's a bunch of records I have to keep of it, and obviously paying the tax lawyer for it, the financial, and so there is a lot of work to be done, but I'm happy about it.
So is that what it means when it describes you as an independent musician on your website?
That's correct.
I see. Okay, and is that quite unusual for artists at the stage of career that you're at?
If you're starting out, if you have a good album, and it's your first album, and you're not worldwide known, it's difficult to cut a good deal with a label. Even because in the last 15 years now, there's only really 3 majors with all these modern companies. Yeah. So, even at the back of Columbia, you read Columbia, and then it's Sony. Because I was spinning a record this morning, I was like, I wonder who actually owns this. So I think it's just Sony, and Warner Brothers. Those are them 3, and they own everything. So it's difficult to cut a good deal. And I thought, I worked so hard all these years doing all this stuff because I wanted to be able to finance it myself and just keep the rights to it, because in the long run, that's what could pay the bill, if I ever need it.
And you have been listening to me, John Hebden, talking to blues singer-songwriter guitarist Leonardo Giuliani. Thanks very much to Leonardo for his music and his time talking to me. We hope that he will be able to play in Yorkshire later this year